Okay, I guess we have most of the people online. Some 6 current users. I'm also running the Google Meet. If anyone wants to join there, it's fine. Okay. Okay. So let us begin. So what is JavaScript? So this is basically going to be a full stack development course, and we'll be um, learning about MERN stack. But before all that, MERN stack, it is a stack which is used to create web applications. So MERN stands for M is for MongoDB, E is for Express, R is for React, and Node is for Node.JS. So all except of course MongoDB, which is database, all the three other technologies, frameworks, libraries, whatever you can call them, they are based on JavaScript language. So JavaScript is basically the language of the web. Before JavaScript, web was just HTML and CSS files, and there was nothing dynamic happening there. It was just all static. And once JavaScript was invented, it was invented at Netscape. The web, it became dynamic. We had more features, more capabilities to actually implement useful things using the internet and the web. Moving on, let's see. So introduction to JavaScript. So most popular programming language, as you know, there are n number of websites out there, and there are, like, you can't find any website where there are no JavaScript being used. So JavaScript is very popular, is used by multiple people, multiple companies, and JavaScript is not just limited to web. You can use JavaScript to create desktop applications. You can create IoT applications using JavaScript. You can even create mobile applications if you want using JavaScript. Easy to learn, it's free, it's open source, it can be used for front end as well as back end. And its main and most important thing is it is an interpreted language. So what is the meaning of interpreted language? It means JavaScript gets executed line by line, and not it's not like the whole code gets compiled into an executable or a chain code, or there are things called machine code. So JavaScript does not get compiled; it gets executed line by line. So we have virtual machines so basically Chrome uses V8. So it's an engine which actually executes JavaScript line by line, and that's how we get outputs and stuff. So V8 is the engine which is used by Chrome. And the same way, whenever you run any JavaScript, there is an engine running which takes lines one by one. It executes those lines, gets the output, and uses it for the execution of next line. Okay, 1 second. So we have 2 people in the call. Good. Tushar and Kaushik. Okay, moving on. History of JavaScript. So I'll just quickly run through these things. So it was invented by Brandon Itch in 1995. It was developed for Netscape 2, which was an old browser. So Netscape handed the JavaScript over to ECMA. So ECMA is the ECMA Foundation, and there are different versions of JavaScript being developed, like ECMA 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So ES6 is the latest one, and other next versions will come in time. And so JavaScript can be also set as ECMAScript, as ECMA is they're implementing things. And Internet Explorer was the first browser which supported ES1, so ECMAScript 1 edition. There was one blunder there. So ECMAScript 4, it was abandoned, And currently, everyone, they use ECMAScript 6, so we call it ES6. So why we are seeing all these different versions of JavaScript? Because with every version, they're adding new features, new capabilities to the language, which can be used by developers to, write the code efficiently, have readability in the code, and using type safety and other things. So yeah. So moving on. So here you're seeing a slide where you can see different versions and all the features which these versions shipped with them. So ES1 was the first edition in 1997. 1998 ES2, so it had some editorial changes. ES3 had regular expression, try catch, switch, and do while loop. ES4, as I said, never released, it was abandoned. ES5, it introduced strict mode. JSON support. JSON is JavaScript object notation. So we'll see that in the next slides. It added functions like string.trim, array.isArray, and you can read all these things. These are the thing which you are supposed to take from this is, with every new version released of JavaScript, there will be new features introduced. So what you're supposed to do is be in touch with the newer release, and whenever there's a release, just go through the features which are released by ECMA, and understand how you can use these features in your code, in your products, in your applications, and write good code, clean code. Okay, moving on. Setting up environment. So funny thing is, if you have a browser, you already have JavaScript running in your system. So I just opened a new tab, and I'll do a right click. I'll click on inspect, and a developer console comes out. I'll just zoom out a bit. So here you can see all the HTML tags which makes this new tab. So whenever I'm moving around, you'll see things are being highlighted and stuff. So if you see, there is this console here. So if I click on this console, one second, yeah. So if I click on this console, you'll see there's this less than symbol, and there's this cursor there which is blinking. So let's write something there, okay? I'll just write one. So the moment I wrote one, you see there are suggestions coming there. But let's do 1 plus 2, and it is showing 3 down here. So even before actually me pressing enter, it is showing me what is the output of 1 plus 2 is going to be, which is 3. So what does this tell you is you can directly run JavaScript in this console. And as you can see, we can write, most of the times we can write just single lines, but we can again try for multiple lines as well. And so what this tells you is JavaScript is already there in your system. If you want to run it using files, or if you want to run Node.js, then you'll have to install Node. But if you are just trying out JavaScript and you want to just play around with it, a console will also do. Okay, let's try something interesting. So I want to change this rewards. Okay, so let's say I want to update this. I don't want that to show rewards. I want it to show my name. So how we can do it? So let's see. I'll just right click on it. I'll say inspect. It will highlight the HTML tag, which is actually printing it on the screen, and it has this class of content. And let's see. So there are different functions available with JavaScript. As I said earlier, JavaScript was initially brought so that you can manipulate the HTML tags using JavaScript. There was nothing to do this particular thing, manipulating HTML tags. So JavaScript was bought, and the way JavaScript does that is using DOM. So DOM is nothing but document object model. I'll demo that after this, but I just want to show you how to actually update this particular thing. Document dot, there's function called get element by class name, and I'll enter the class name which I've copied, and I get an HTML collection of 4 things. So I'll just print it and I'll see which one represents this. So the 0 is represent this, third, and the 4th one is representing rewards. So I'll again do that. I'll say this of 3 dot inner HTML. So you see, when I just say inner HTML, it is showing rewards as a preview of the output. And instead of rewards, I'll assign Utkarsh, and you see it is showing Utkarsh instead of rewards. So this is how you can manipulate your HTML using JavaScript and the console. Let's move on. So next thing is Chrome's V8 engine. So we already talked about it. So Chrome has a V8 engine which runs JavaScript and Node.JS, which is the backend version of JavaScript. So basically, Node.js helps you or gives you the capability to run JavaScript in your backend. So what is the backend and front end? Backend is your server, and front end is whatever you see in your browser, that is front end. Whenever you open a website, whatever you see in your browser, that's front end, and the supporting system or the database or your login, signups, all these things, they happen at your backend. So Node.js, that basically gave us the capability to run JavaScript in the backend. So you can simply go to Node.js org and click on the section for 15.1 LTS. It will download a binary in your system, and just like a normal installation, you should install it. And you should also install VS Code, because most of the programming will be on the VS Code. And then we have a hello world example. So let's actually run something. So when you open VS Code, you'll have to go in file, you'll have to select a folder. Basically, you'll just say that I want to open a folder, and yeah. So I'll be opening the training folder, which is already opened here, and we have this JS training. I'll share the link to this repo. So it is on the GitHub, so I'll share the repo so you can actually use it. And we have this hello world.js file here. So let's write something, So console.log 1 plus 2, and how to run it. You can use terminal, and we'll just move inside JS training, and I'll say node and then hello world.js and give enter. It's printing 3. So basically it ran the program. Console log means logging or printing whatever the data you pass in the function on the console. So 1 plus 2, 3, it printed 3 on the console. So console.log, we want to print hello world, so we'll say hello world, and let's just remove this and save it and run the same code, and we see hello world in the console. Okay, so this is the basic hello world example. So moving on, document object model. So this is important when it comes to front end, because you really need to understand what DOM is and how it works to efficiently use JavaScript and manipulate your front end. So DOM is basically a tree, and the root of this tree is document, as you can see. So basically JavaScript manipulates or accesses DOM using the keyword document. So if you remember in the console before, when I changed the text on my new tab, I used document. So when I say document, it is highlighting the whole HTML or whole front end, right? When I say document dot, and you'll see there are n number of functions available here, out of which the get element by ID, get element by class name, get elements by name, get elements by tag name, get elements by tag name namespace ns. So all these functions, they can be used to get a particular HTML tag from that document. And we can do n number of things. We can assign things, we can add classes, we can change styles. So all the things which makes the website dynamic, we can do it using document. Okay. And the HTML which we're manipulating, that is assigned, or that is arranged in terms of a tree, in form of a tree under document. So HTML is root. Under HTML we'll have head and body. Inside head we'll have title. Title will have text of my title. Body will have a h1 tag. It will have h1 tag will have a child, which is a heading. So in that way, the whole HTML is arranged in terms of a tree, so that JavaScript can manipulate it efficiently. And we have already tried get element by ID. There are things like get element by name and class name, which we saw. So we'll move on and we'll see the examples of them afterwards. So yeah, next is basic output. So how to give output using JavaScript. So there's this inner HTML. We just saw that I manipulated an HTML tag using inner HTML. Let's see. So if you see here, I use inner HTML to assign Utkarsh instead of rewards. And if you check that particular HTML tag, Utkarsh is here. So the data, the content which you write inside an HTML tag, that is called inner HTML. Okay. Next one we have is document.write. So this one is interesting. So when you use document.write, it just replaces everything. It's like a reverse of append. So it will just write whatever we enter here. So I'll say, I don't know, document.write. So this is a brand new document. You see, it replaced everything which was there in the HTML. And all I'm able to see is this text. This is a brand new document. And if I check the HTML of this, I'll see this is the brand. Yeah, the body has only this particular text. This is a, yeah, I did something wrong. Yeah, some spelling mistake. Yeah, it's the brand new document. So document.write, it just clears out the whole body and writes whatever you pass to that particular function. Then I'll do a refresh. Yeah. Next is window.alert. So you must have seen these alert boxes, right? Like you're leaving this site, or do you want to resubmit this particular form? Those kind of alerts in your browser. So window.alert is the function which is used to create these alerts. This is an alert. And when I give enter, we'll see this alert coming up here. This is an alert here. I can say okay, it will go away. So alerts, it does not manipulate or change your body. It just creates a pop-up box and shows it to you. Okay. Moving on. Next, we have console.log. So I demonstrated console.log in the JS file, in the hello world.js file, and ran it using node hello world.js. Same thing you can do in your browser as well. So if I go to console and if I say console.log, logging inside browser, it is giving the output here, logging inside browser. And see VM1488/1. So basically, this JavaScript, it got executed on a VM, which is the V8 engine. Okay. Moving on. Variables. When it comes to any language, sorry, when it comes to any language, variables are something which you start it, like you first learn about variables when it comes to any language. Variables help you save data, save values, manipulate them, do operations on them. So let's see how the variables things work in JavaScript. So their identifiers, they can have short names like X, Y, I, J, K. They can have descriptive names like sum, total volume, percentage tags, and whatnot, like depending on your use case. General rules which should be followed is variables. They can contain letters, digits, underscores, and dollar signs. So let's repeat that. So in JavaScript, variables can contain letters, of course, numbers, of course. We can have para1 or income one, these kind of variables. We can have variables like income underscore person. So there can be a underscore there, and dollar sign. They can start and end with dollars, the variables. The name, it must begin with a letter or a dollar or a underscore. Okay, you cannot begin a variable name with a number. It must start with a letter or a dollar or an underscore. The names are case sensitive. So small y and capital Y, they are different variables. So you have to make sure that while writing, you remember this, that the variables are case sensitive. There are some keywords which are used by language, like let, where, for, do, while, await, async. So you cannot use these names for variables, or it will just give a conflict. So let, await, async, const. You cannot use these names for variables. And that was the basic of it. Let's see some examples first. Okay, let's go to variables. So you can use var to declare a variable. So here we have var index equal to 0. You don't necessarily have to initialize the variable right away. You can write a variable like this also without initializing it. And when you don't initialize it, the default value of that variable will be undefined. Okay. Next, you can use let. So let str is equal to hello. So str is a variable and it contains a string hello. Index is a variable, it contains a number 0. Then we have const ar, which is an array of strings. And we have const pi, which has a value of 3.14, which is pi. We all know this. Even though we created ar as a constant, we still can assign data to ar, but not like this. So if we try to assign a new array, it will fail. It will basically give an error when we run it. Let's actually run it. We should see an error right away. Yeah. So type error, assignment to a constant variable. So, and it is showing line number 5, which is this. Let me remove this. So what does this say is that you cannot reassign to array right away, but you can actually reassign the indexes of that array. So if you want to replace world with 1, you can do it like this. So let's run this line by line so we can actually see how the assignment works and how variables work, and then we'll stop for today. Okay, so with this button I step over to new line. So I was on line number 1, and when I clicked here, the debugger moved to line number 2. So line number 1 is now executed. So if I hover on index, you'll see it is showing me the value which is stored in that variable, which is 0. I'll do it one more time. Now I hover on str, it is showing me hello. But you can see a difference that when we assigned hello, it was double quotes, but when it is stored, it is single quote. So in JavaScript, double quotes and single quotes can be used interchangeably as long as it's a normal string and you're not doing, some special operations there. Moving on, array, it is showing again 0, 1, 2 indexes and world, students, and everyone. Const pi, it will show 3.14. So now we're trying to reassign the zeroed index with 1. So when we step over, I'm gonna hover, I have 1, students, and everyone. So in JavaScript, it is possible to have arrays with different data types. And now we're trying to do a console log. So console log also can be used in multiple ways. So the initial console log which we saw in Hello World, we were just passing a single string, or we were doing something like 1 plus 2, but the operation was ending as this and it was just printing 3. But here what we're doing is we're passing str, we're giving a comma, and then we're giving array of index. So when you enter multiple things in console log separated by a comma, it will just append all of them, basically concat them together, separating by spaces. So str is hello, an array of index which is 0 is 1. So this should print hello space 1. Let's see. Yeah, it printed hello space 1. Next is we're assigning str with hello, but str is let, so it won't give any error. Now str's value becomes high. Yeah. And in this debug console, if I enter str and give an enter, it will print it. So the same way the browser's console works, the debug console also works in the same way. Then I'm assigning index equal to 1, and then we are doing one more console log, hi, and array of 1, which is students. So it should print hi space students. Yeah. This is an object. So the way you have hash maps in Java or classes, and we won't go to classes, but yeah. So an object is nothing but a key value pair. So you can have multiple keys and their corresponding values. And the way we write them is we have an open curly brace and a close curly brace. And in between, we'll have a list of key value, separated by colon. So key, colon, value, comma, key, colon, value. So we have name Utkarsh, and if you want, let's say last name, I can write it like comma, last name Mehta. and it is the right notation. So now the object, of course, I saved it afterwards, so this the last name part won't reflect. The object is showing name colon Utkarsh. Now let's say you want to reassign the name with Ruchita. So object dot name, it is giving Ruchita now. And if we hover an object, it will say name colon Ruchita. Okay. Then I have assigned let x is equal to 10. And basically this is a block. So whenever you write JavaScript code, inside open and close curly brace, it is called as a code block. X is 10. So if I try to access 10x here, it is giving me 10. So we have var def is equal to 10 minus 20, which is equal to minus 10. Then we have sum 10 plus 20, which is 30, and we're doing a console log of sum. Oh yeah. So the reason why I wrote this code block was to show you how let works. Okay. So whenever you create any variable using let, that particular variable is just limited in the code block where it has been defined. So as sum is defined in this code block, it won't be accessible here. So I'll put a breakpoint here. I'll remove these breakpoints, and when I run this, it will print the sum here. But when the debugger comes at line number 36, it will throw an error that sum is not defined. Okay, I'll run it again. So it printed 30. So line number 31, it got executed correctly. But if I just hover on sum right here, it is not showing me anything. And I just continue this, and it will give me an error that sum is not defined. So there are people who ask difference between var and let and const. So whenever you declare any variable using let, that variable is only accessible in the code block where that variable is defined. So as the sum was defined inside this code block, it will be only accessible inside this code block and not outside. In the slides, we can say whenever we create any variable using var, it is stored in global scope. So it is accessible everywhere. It's global. Function scope, of course, it is accessible in function scope. Okay, so for this, maybe we'll discuss in detail in the next session, which is going to be tomorrow. But the main thing which you should understand is whenever you create a variable using let, it is only accessible in the code block where it has been defined. The scope of let is never global. It is only in that particular block where it is defined. Okay, so I think, yeah, that is it for today. Thank you for joining. I hope it was good. Please share your comments. If you have any doubts, any questions, share them in the chat, or you can just comment those things, and I'll be sharing this repo with you, so you can actually try these things in your system. And give me just 1 second. I'll find the repo and share it with you. Yeah. So the people who have joined from Meet, I have shared it in the chat, and the people who joined from YouTube Live, I'll be sharing it in the comments. So just clone this repo from GitHub. You'll find all the examples. Try it out, and the presentation that is also present in the same Git repo. I hope it